Hi, I'm Linda Redman of Eco Peace Vision, and this is a slideshow called SCO-JHEV, a word and a plan for a healthy city. The term SCO-JHEV I came up with after 9/11 a while ago. It was my response, the concept of structuring cultures of joy, health, ecology, and other virtues. I have about 22 slides related to this. I changed the design. Instead of hearts, I used to have hearts going around in a circle for the concept of kind of love, peace, and ecology, to roses, because some people understand hearts. They've been connected with also pagan symbology, and that has to do with there was a birth control seed pod that was in the shape of a heart. But anyway, they're both kind of okay symbols, but unfortunately there has been a game out called Undertales, and they use a little red heart bobbing along, and then they go down, and then there's skulls and or skeleton type beings, and if people try to make a more ethical choice, they lose points. So unfortunately the heart has been used in this way in at least one video game. So people just need to be aware that of that sort of thing can happen. So I put the rose as a symbol now, and if we could find or make a ribbon, I would probably put rose there. Like these kind of roses, they are supposed to be, there's a type of rose that's called the peace rose. So that's the goal, to have a rose that's the peace rose be the symbol. I just want to go back really quick and say that designs are physical and social structures that can be used in a SCO-JHEV Healthy City campaign. The middle image is the SCO-JHEV peace ribbon made from embroidered parka trim. That's what I know that to be. That's what we call it. I'm originally from Alaska, and that's what I recognize it as. And it is helpful to put some kind of glue or tape on the back side if you cut it, and this one just has a safety pin there to attach it to someone's clothing. Then some kind of tape or glue on the back side at the bottom here will stop it from fraying. Then wearing symbols is a way to help people feel like they are connected behind the same goal. It can also help advertise the campaign. So here are some social and physical structures I'll start out with in the slideshow. Mostly we'll be starting with the social structures. This is some slides related to the SCO-JHEV concept. Is a concept for a holistic view of healthy cities, and I wrote the word with a W because that makes sense, because holistic means it includes several different aspects, not just one. So here is kind of mostly a social structure, but it is also a bit of a physical structure that we can look at. We can ask ourselves, are there affordable groups and classes that build good character traits in one city? City leaders may want to hold an event where health-oriented groups can increase their members. Here's another social structure, cultural activities. Another SCO-JHEV social structure is cultural activities. It's great to identify and celebrate heroes and sheroes in the different cultures in one city. Can some cultural foods be altered to be a bit healthier? How can we educate and encourage neighbors about healthy food choices? For example, fries can be baked with a tiny amount of oil and seasonings. Even olive oil added at the end would be a better idea. When you cook some oils, they can go rancid, or if they're not, maybe handled or in the right kind of containers or exposed to light. So that is unhealthy. So we want to know what the healthy foods are, and to encourage them in our communities. A food fair could highlight that Koreans, for example, have a great way of slicing beef paper thin and stir frying these with lots of vegetables, these pieces of beef. And also we could show people that there's a type of beef alternative out there for hamburgers called Beyond Meat, and in my community that's available in Safeway. It may only be available in the Northwest. I think it comes out of anyway, but check for it. We can also educate about ecological eating, how if we eat plant-based diet, that can help even our atmosphere by having the need for less animals. And a lot of large animals are producing methane, I believe with their burps. One of the articles said methane is very destructive, way more destructive than carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. And then it does, as it degrades, it turns into carbon dioxide. So it's really worth looking into, and if we can even keep track of the numbers where we're able to, by our buying choices and our lifestyle choices, reduce CO2 and carbon dioxide, and even compete with other cities that are similar amount of residents, or best to compete with our own cities. How can we improve the score of our lowering our carbon footprint, our pollution footprint? Festivals and events are another type of social structure for healthy cities. When we think of encouraging social structures, why not plan festivals and events that seek to elicit joy, health, ecology, and other virtues? Do residents have work schedules that allow common time off? Is it possible to have some citywide downtimes from jobs? Are people able to work close to where they live, and maybe there can be a job exchange program to where people could exchange jobs to find one that's closer by where they live? How about a town forum on this and other topics? Some communities have free or affordable, meaningful movie nights and discussions and talent shows and open mic nights. Why not do these among neighbors and then share the best of these in free community-wide gatherings? I want to mention something here that my community, it's Auburn, Washington, and they do give scholarships for the programs through the Parks and Arts and Recreation Department, but I see many things that are cultural activities that people are excluded if they don't have money to go to them, and that doesn't seem fair. So I would hope that we could have more of a sliding scale availability to really, and to have free and maybe donation type cultural events, so that people that do have money can give it, and if people don't have money, they're not excluded because of that. And that concept is, I believe, rooted in the concept that according to God, everyone's soul has equal value. And in some faiths, which actually some people say the faith that is in the Bible, that some things were taken out to where reincarnation could happen. It is Edgar Casey, in his readings, in his deep state, determined that the Bible that some leaders of the church did take reincarnation out. So if we put even the possibility of that into the picture, people can be at any kind of a lifestyle, and they could have different lives. So the soul is what is valued, and people are learning different lessons, maybe in whatever life situation they have. So, and that it's according to the Bible that everyone is, the souls are really valued by God as children of God, about God being a father-like figure. And this country was founded on those principles. We've gotten away from them, but if we look, the founders did have that sort of thing in mind, and our Declaration of Independence relays that, which I believe could be kind of updated and made more clearly a preamble to our Constitution, and that would help things so that we wouldn't have dark religions and dark religious themes in books and movies, which I'll be getting to soon. Okay, so here's some public education as a social structure concepts. The natural step, let me talk about that. Public education for a healthy city. A Swedish cancer researcher, Carl Henrik Robert, noticed that cancer incidences had increased in proportion to an increase in chemicals in the environment. He reasoned that he might do more to help prevent cancer if he could improve the health of the environment. He got 100 scientists to agree on 4 basic principles of sustainability. Here they are: conserve resources, reduce pollutants, replenish resources, and needs met for all, a social justice kind of concept. So these scientists all agreed that this made sense for living sustainably, made scientific sense for humans to continue. And then they had a event called, the government launched a public education campaign involving an initiating event with celebrities and the king, saying Sweden was going to take the natural step. A pictorial book was sent to every household in the country with a cassette. This was around 1989. The book showed bar graphs of a certain amount of chemicals produced in 1970 and a bar graph showing almost twice as many of the same kind of chemicals being produced around 1989. At the end of the book were suggestions of better choices for several widely used products, like non-chlorinated paper products. I want to mention that the connection was made that there was a rise in the chemicals over a period of years, and the same period of years there was also appeared to be correlated a rise in cancer rates. So at the end, people are shown how they can help this situation by consumer choices. And a good one is still buying non-chlorinated paper products and reducing paper products at this time, because we really need our oxygen with extra people and more trees still getting cut down. This is a really important issue to look at. So people were also encouraged in Sweden to get into study circles with their friends and family, neighbors, and discuss how they were going to take the natural step The Natural Step group helped professionals exchange information for how to have better ecological practices. This provides a great model that any city can follow. 11 other countries, at least, have followed this example, and there are over 50 associates around the world committed to taking the natural step. Here's another social and physical structures related to media. I'm saying physical because it can be environmental, like what surrounds you, what surrounds us, what things do we see in our environment. So I'm putting interactive media under the headings of both social and physical structures. So what kinds of books are in clear sight in the local libraries? What kinds of videos, video games, magazines, and toys are in clear view in local stores? Do they encourage residents to strive for high principles, to learn helpful skills, to care for one another and the biological world around them? We can note that the founders claimed in the Declaration of Independence that the United States could be separate and equal from England because, under the laws of nature and nature's God, which I call the LONNG clause or the Long clause, countries as well as individuals can equally follow God. Some people are not sure God exists. It would be a great community forum to listen to stories that residents might have related to this topic and the topic of how do we grow residents that respect one another. How can communities encourage godly or virtuous ways and steer clear of ungodly or off-track unvirtuous ways? Under the Long clause, it appears lawful for cities to use incentives and disincentives to steer residents to choose constructive media. The concept is that also that each individual city can, I believe, decide if they think it makes sense that the Declaration of Independence was or could be considered or even updated as a preamble to the Constitution. Federally would have to update it, but I believe city by city could decide to use it as a preamble. And there's still the option of people, if they don't believe in God, what it does is it's trying to say, it says all men are created equal. So I think that's why people kind of distanced it from the Constitution. But if we look at the language, the Greek in the interlinear version of the Bible on BibleHub.com, the word is adelphus. I may not be pronouncing it right, but like when Paul is talking to a crowd, and then that was translated as brothers, and so we don't hear brothers and sisters, it gets translated as brothers. But when you look into that word, it actually means of the womb, WOMB. So that's more broad than just talking about brothers. And so we can say that all humans, in fact, it really could conceivably mean all mammals are created equal. So just keep all that in mind. But just that word, really, the understanding at the time, they didn't have the Greek to look into, and so that's why the early founders used that kind of language. But we should be able to update that to include all God's children are created equal, or all. Maybe we should just say beings from the womb are created equal, and the concept is really are equally valuable to God. Their soul is, which should get us to, that's anchors us again in our caring for one another and all our policies related to that, to really care for those people who are suffering, who are homeless, not try to think, not to just be heartless towards them. Related to that last concept, we need to look at the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. They have the archaeological evidence that they were really rained on by sulfur, a rain of sulfur, which burns so hot it's a blue flame. And in Ezekiel, one of the things that was noted, the one thing that was noted about those cities was that they had plenty of food, but they were not they were not sharing it with those in need in those cities. So that's very important to acknowledge those facts. So here we're starting to go into the physical structures, what we can do to physically structure cultures of joy, health, ecology, and other virtues in our cities. So some examples of physical structures are community gardens, home gardens, front and back door gardens, landscape point of interest enhancements, city bordering fruit and nut tree forests and gardens. So to talk about these last two, the point of interest enhancements, community groups might be encouraged to propose and do some related projects. This is the concept of having really nice little displays, or even like this. This is in a parking lot. It has edible berries. The parking lot itself has permeable concrete. So I'm thinking of very beautiful little landscape enhancements in parking spots in cities, and there can be incentives for businesses to do those, like they get a break in their taxes if they do that sort of thing. A little shade, some places to sit, like a little neighborhood visiting plaza, place for people to visit. Right now, people are afraid to put park benches out because people will sleep on them. Well, in my mind, the solution to that is, how about having the small, tiny homes, neighborhood per neighborhood? So if people are homeless, actually they get adopted by a neighborhood, so people get to know these neighbors that need help. Ideally, it will be a neighborhood they're familiar with or they're comfortable with living at. They might have grown up in that area. A lot of people have had brain injuries, can be through abuse of substances, toxic. Some people have a gluten allergy they're not familiar with, and that can cause extra long protein particles to get out of their intestine and affect their thinking, their brain. They can have inflammation of the brain. But if they're in a neighborhood, maybe people can help them look into what they can do to get a little better living situation and have that. It's called housing first. We'll be getting to this too as another physical structure, but so I'll get to that later. But just that it's kind of a new idea of getting a few people per neighborhoods to sponsor a few at a time. That helps keep them in sight, not out of sight, out of mind. Okay, are there peaceful and inspiring neighborhood parks? if there are neighborhood parks, can we make them better, more exciting, more colorful, more fragrant? Can we add water, like running water, and sculptures also that are beautiful, that really help elevate one's heart, and tactile things that affect our senses. Um, I'll get to, there's a neighborhood park that has included sensory things like drums for the children. It's a play park, and tone things to tap on to get different tones to play nice sounds. So I wanted to mention that this concept of the bordering the city. So a border around the city, like this has also a border of water. What this does is it makes the city, it identifies the city, it delineates the city. And there can be edible trees in the park, in gardens, and so we can also have nice walking trails and running trails, bicycling in these areas. The city of Guadalajara had really distinct architecture for different cities that were nearby, and now they're all blended in. The architecture's still there, but wouldn't it be great if the designers could get cushions of trees in between the cities, so they could redefine and re-highlight the individual places. Okay, here is some physical structure, uplifting landscape enhancements. This is Kubota Gardens with that trail out of flat rocks, and that's south of Seattle, in the Renton, city of Renton. There's 40 acres, I believe, in this park. There's a cascading waterfall. You can walk up to the top of the waterfall. I believe it is man-made too. Different things are created because this whole park was the home of one of the first landscapers from Japan. He was from Japan, but he was a main landscaper in Seattle, Mr. Kubota. So there's like 9 different bridges in this park. Some of them are flat, big long blocks of smooth concrete that go across a body of water. Another one is at the top of that waterfall where you can, some big round stepping stones that are flat on the top, that are thick, that you can cross over the stream. There's 2 Japanese bridges. There's different kinds of environments and sceneries there. So it's a really inspiring and nice park to have, and very close to metropolitan areas. This is a city park in downtown Seattle. They put a waterfall in here. It's a very quiet, meditative area, even though it's in the city. This is just a nice area to walk by in Seattle. A lot of flowers can be uplifting. This is in Gig Harbor, so the flowers and the water, bright. This is we call these Sitka roses in Alaska. They're very fragrant and they're wild. They're very easy to grow. We can see how the colors really brighten things up. There's another nice fragrant early flower called Daphne. That's great. And lilac trees. And I think the lilac trees don't lose their leaves, so that's an easy maintenance thing too. Some people get a headache with lavender, so some of the fragrant oils are strong, and that's something to keep in mind. So here's another social and physical concept: blue zone cities. Walkable, aesthetic, positive, peaceful, sociable, plant-based diets. These are all some concepts. I invite you to watch a YouTube video of Dan, and his last name is Buettner, Buettner, talking about the Blue Zone Project. Dan was part of a National Geographic Fellowship team that identified communities around the world who had the healthiest, longest living people. They circled the areas with a blue marker, and that's how they came to call these areas blue zones. They identified 5 communities. One was on an island off of Greece, another was on an island off of Japan, another was in Italy, another was in Loma Linda, California, and the 5th one was in Costa Rica. They found the populations mostly ate fresh, local produce and beans. Some also included fish or nuts. Most communities were isolated, and the people spent 6 to 8 hours a day with family and community members who lived in the same blue zones. The people in these zones tended to weave their exercise into rhythmical, enjoyable daily activities. Now there is a blue zones movement in cities as we seek to have very spry, aging populations and spiritually uplifting cities. Blue zone communities might have scenic, enjoyable paths for residents to walk on for weekly or daily errands or groceries. They might have affordable, frequent minibus shuttles for downtown errands. Blue zone communities might have affordable, dense housing near the heart of the city. Residents in a town in Siberia would live in the city during the week and then go to homes in the country on weekends to commune with nature while tending gardens and doing weekend chores. This is where I met a woman from Siberia in Alaska, a young woman, and she said that they lived in, they called them flats, I believe. They were large buildings that were like 6 or 8 sided, and each level was a home. And so they had a lot of light coming in. I'm visualizing they were fairly separate from the next one, so you had your privacy too, probably. And then they would do their town errands, they would go to school, work, and all during the week, and people would go out of town on the weekend to their home away from home out in the country and do their weekend chores and be in nature. So that was a neat system they had, and a nice living structure as far as getting light all the way around in your home. So that part of this idea is to make the walkway, merge your errands that you have to do with where you live so that you can walk and do them, and make it really enjoyable. Make the walking enjoyable and easy. Flat, so if people have wheelchairs, it's accessible. You could even ride a bike, but the idea is to try to make it walkable cities. And that could be done in neighborhoods too. We could build up our neighborhoods to where there's local grocery stores and small little grocery stores that you can also order from the internet, maybe like a general store that's small, but a place you can talk to your neighbors and sit down and have some snacks and hot drinks and smoothies. Okay, here's another: physical structures, visual displays, and architecture. Libraries highlight peace, health, and ecology books. Ecological buildings. This is an example of one called the Bullitt Center in Seattle. It has solar panel roof, concrete floor. They don't have toxic materials in here, and they have a huge list of the toxic materials that can be used in the building industries. Play areas incorporate circles and engage the senses. This is an example of one of the circular toys at a play area in Auburn at the Les Gove Park next to the public library. And these circular, the other one is just level with the ground, and it's sort of cushiony, but an outdoor material, so if people fall off the circular ones, they don't get hurt. And I've seen people play for hours and all in harmony with these. They also have this is where they have the things to create tones, to create beautiful sounds with long bars that are hollow, long metal tubes hanging down. They can hit those with like a rubber mallet, some drums. There's sand there they can play with, a big sand pit, and long slides. So the idea is for engage the senses. And there's also a water park right bordering it too. And the concept here with the libraries is, are the local libraries and stores willing to highlight some books and products related to peace, health, and ecology? It has to do with getting the businesses in town and the public library and the city government to getting the residents to kind of agree that the goal is to create a city that values health, peace, and ecology. And if those are the values, then we're going to highlight the kind of books, the kind of movies, the kind of programs that help guide us in that way, to go in that way. Also, along the lines of the environmental buildings, there can be incentives to encourage energy saving and low toxicity buildings in one's town. And like I said, this is called the Bullet Center. It's an example of the latest technologies for commercial ecological buildings. There are tours available there, and it is spelled Bullitt, I believe. The Bullitt Center Foundation. Okay, so here are some more physical and social structures. Affordable housing. In Isaiah chapter 38 of the Bible, the prophet Isaiah said to provide shelter for the needy. Is shelter and encouragement being provided for the homeless in one's city? Flowers and plants, inside and outside, can uplift people's spirits. People need day as well as night space to rest if they're homeless. And if people aren't homeless, they also need the day space like plazas to be able to socialize, or a neighborhood cafe. And they need to have some products that are cheap enough or free so that people do not feel excluded even if they don't have money. Also, I want to mention, I like the idea of the small homes. They could be bigger than that too, but anyway, the idea is to get people a home and also their own little bathroom, restroom in the home. Actually, yeah, probably bathroom, because as people get elderly, sometimes they need to soak in a warm bath because that's going to help them feel better and then they would need less of the pain medicine that some of them are needing, some of the people that are having hard times. But it helps their hygiene, and that helps everyone else's hygiene. So also, some people cannot get a health aid unless they have a home. In fact, they have, where I live, the people have to have lived in a home and have somebody helping them in a home in order to get a health aid, which does not seem right, because there are people that don't have a home that need a health aid. So also, if there can be places where people can have some kind of a small place to live and then nearby a place to have a workshop, a lot of people will, there are a lot of disabled people or people that are in pain or whatever, but they can walk a little ways. So if there's something that's very close by that they can work on things, and some people are creative, they might do something with tools or with building something or making art and repairing bicycles. A lot of people would like to do things, but they just need the right setup. There's one other thing I want to mention is that some people that are involved with alcohol, for example, there can be a possessive spirit that goes along with that. Even if you don't believe that that is a probability, at least I would hope people would have it as a possibility. So to me it should be screened for, and but you can't just clear a spirit from somebody if the person isn't open to that or isn't going to follow up with reading the Bible, understanding the concept of wanting the Holy Spirit to fill them and be with them. So mostly, we can just encourage people that their soul is important, that their progress in this life towards a higher ideal is important, and just that people know and that we can offer offer people to spiritual clearing if they want to do that and if they will follow up, and then having maybe a place where very close by they can go and learn to read the Bible if they can't read, listen to stories, things like that, have that kind of support for people. So here's physical and social structures, meeting places. I mentioned this a little bit earlier, the idea of neighborhood, corner, healthy market, bulletin board, neighborhood meeting place and or plaza. There is one in Seward Park where people have dances, like folk dances, live music. People can walk there. So those are nice things. The idea is conversation cafe. It can also help with voting, because in Mexico I have heard, and they probably still do this in the state of Jalisco or in Guadalajara, people would go to their neighborhood store to vote. They would choose a person from either each of the two major parties. The neighbors would choose them to read the votes, tally the votes, and the neighbors could watch it happen. So the neighbors could feel good about their vote being counted. In fact, I'm thinking that you could mark it with a pink pen if nobody even knew you used that, turn in your ballot and actually see that pink mark being counted, knowing your vote was counted. Then what they do is they agree on the number, so you kind of know how your neighbors feel, which is interesting too. Then they call it in and they can watch. We can do this now online, but this is 20 years ago it was described to me what was happening. they can watch on the TV their each neighborhood's vote numbers, so you can everybody can add up the notes, so you have a confidence each neighborhood has just been responsible for their numbers, and it um, right, so they can validate, each neighborhood can validate their own numbers. You can all add it up together. So I want to encourage that concept for the United States. Here's some pictures of physical structures: plazas, uplifting art, flowers, a comfortable town plaza protected from the elements. Here's one example. Here's another with the roof there. Here's neighborhood volunteer park in Seattle. That's a great greenhouse. It's warm in the winter. There's always people coming in. It's just by donations. You can give some money if you want. There's an area with cactus, another area that's tropical in there. So you can see beautiful flowers even when it's very gray in the winter. And so that's just a great highlight to have in one's neighborhood. Sculptures, I just want to encourage ones that are really pleasing to the eye, that if they're of forms of nature, that is one thing, can be pleasing. Some sculptures, if they're lower down, the kids can climb on them and interact that way. So a huge greenhouse, it can be a place where people can socialize, they can play music, they can talk to one another, they can read, there could be water, the sound of water, which is very soothing. So low stress is a great way to help the health of one's residents. A huge greenhouse can be easy and inexpensive structure for a plaza in northern or rainy cities. Clear glass coverings and skylights can let lots of light, and the green and colorful plants can elevate people's moods. Can we create a university or the feeling of a college campus in or near the heart of one city or nearby one city and the neighborhoods around that? Maybe we can build up our elementary schools to have different levels of education, because each neighborhood has an elementary school. In China, I heard that they would have a village, and in the village they would have all levels of education all the way up to college. And they would have agriculture around the outside. So that sounds like a really nice design for a little small city. We can have flowing sculptures of human and other living beings to help raise people's spirits. In gray sky, rainy or dark winter areas, bright colors will be helpful. Sweden, Norway have some examples of that with their buildings, how they paint. And the IKEA is a place that has some of that, some things like from Sweden there. So here's some physical structures, nature, the structure of nature around us. Inner peace. How is there's a landscape designers, landscape architects look at this sort of thing. They and architects for inside the home think about how are the structures, how did the structures around us create inner peace by low stress with our home and our commons environments. I believe high ceilings help with a sense of less stress. There's a possibility, it's a hypothesis, that maybe our higher self it allows that higher self more height above our body. Somehow I feel like that helps. Flowers, colorful things, how we decorate with simplicity. How can we have places where we can put stuff out of sight for lower stress in our homes? And then external peace when we go outside of our homes, uplifting landscapes and landscape enhancements, having the time in our day for outdoor time and interests. If we look at the Google maps of the world, we can note that there is a lot of light green areas. Those are the places that the forests have been taken down. There's only a few dark spots of green left. So we really need this. That's the tropical rainforests. They're rapidly getting cut down in South America, especially. We need this oxygen. So that's part of our overall environment for living healthy. Water landscapes. This is the last slide. Well, there's one more slide, ending slide, but this is the last pictorial slide. So water can uplift and refresh people's spirits. This is an example of a water landscape. It is a calm pond with fish in it. There's a tiny stream of water at the back right here, falling over that large granite rock. This is Kubota Gardens, also just south of Seattle in the city of Renton. I want to mention that in Auburn there's two rivers. You don't see them much. You can't see them at all from the city, but it seems that it could be an idea to, what they do is they come down from Mount Rainier, and one of them goes north and one of them goes south from Auburn out. One of them goes towards Tacoma and one goes towards Seattle and out to sea. And what if a channel of each of these rivers could be brought in, and you could just design all kinds of things with the water. You could have water wheels, you could have little ponds, and birds could feed there, and one of them could be maybe on one side of a road coming into town, and the other could be on another area. So somehow the people, when you're in town, could be a little more connected to the rivers. Also developing around, really, there are some trails already, but just even more trails around, even maybe zip lines and stuff, a park like that around the rivers, one of the rivers or both, and to connect the community a little more, consider the water as bringing that into a community. So designs are physical and social structures that can be used in a SCO-JHEV Healthy City campaign. The middle image is a SCO-JHEV peace ribbon made from embroidered parka trim. It's helpful to put, like I mentioned before, masking tape at the back of the ribbon ends, or glue to reinforce and prevent fraying. Wearing symbols can help people feel like they are connected behind the same goal. It can also help advertise the campaign. Thanks for listening, and I hope we can further the Healthy Cities movement. SCO-JHEV can also be a word and a plan for peace. So I'd like to hear what ideas other people are doing in their cities, and I hope people can post the links to other videos related to this topic in the comment section. All right, enjoy your city. Let's get outside and be healthy.